Hyperfocus, or as I like to call it, uncontrolled thinking, has affected me in so many ways at different times in my life. And I want to share some of those times with you today so we can get an idea of how we can deal and live with uncontrolled thinking or hyperfocus, whatever you'd like to call it. Some might say that I might have ADHD, maybe autism. No idea. I don't have a diagnosis. All I know is that over the years I've learned how my brain kind of functions and works. But when I was younger, I had no idea and I had no strategies to live with the way that I was thinking. So I found myself in deep pits of ruminating, like I'd be trying to go to sleep and all I could think about is whatever was on my mind, whatever something that had happened during the day. And it's only now in my 30s where I actually work with autistic adults and I've learned ways of how to manage it and seen things in myself so I can use these strategies, employ them to help me. But many times throughout my life, it's actually hindered me. For one instance, video gaming. This is where I like to use the term hyperfocus. But it is a bit uncontrolled focus as well. Like when I'm really deep into a video game, it doesn't really matter what the video game is. It could be a TV show, in fact. In fact, there's one story here. There's a TV show called Lost. There's quite a few episodes. I remember one week I lied down in my bed and I watched Lost from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep for a week straight until I finished the show. And I would do things like that all the time. If I was really interested in that, that is all I would do. And it shows up in my life to this day because my desk gets filled with all sorts of things, oftentimes is completely filled with things because I'm so focused on what I'm doing that nothing else really matters to me. Now I can sort of channel into that and use it to help me. I will use my hyperfocus and lean into it to allow me to edit and do all sorts of things that I want to do, like edit videos, make YouTube videos, whatever that is. I allow myself to focus on it and I forget about everything else. But yeah, for most of my time, it's been uncontrolled thinking. And the way that it deeply affected me was mostly in my sleep, and it would affect me day to day as well. And I'd just worry about things, health conditions. Well, I was diagnosed with an inflammatory bowel disease in my early 20s, and it was very easy to hyperfocus on that. Apparently, those sort of conditions are quite common with people with perhaps ADHD and autism. But anyway, don't have a diagnosis, so can't say yay or nay on that front. I'm just an adult who's learning to deal with the way that their brain works. And I think that this is applicable to anyone. Doesn't matter if you know that you're autistic or not, or ADHD. Doesn't matter. What we're talking about here is learning to just deal with how your brain works. And we all have a brain that works in a certain way, and it's good to just know how you work. Because for years I was trying to fight it. I'm trying to wake up early to do things, and I'm worrying about getting sleep. I'm worrying about how bad my sleep's going to be because I've agreed to do something in the morning. And then I did for a time go to therapy, and one of the strategies she said was always give yourself a get out of jail free card. Say, for instance, you go into a flight, you're really scared about getting on that plane, and you don't know what it's going to be like, and you're terrified. You're like, I don't want to get on this plane. I don't want to get on this plane. I'm not going to sleep well. You start thinking, the plane's going to crash, blah, blah, blah. The best thing you can do is just say to yourself, if I don't want to get on that plane, I just won't. And oftentimes you don't take the get out of jail free card, but it takes some of that pressure off. You're like, if I want to leave, I can. So will I decide to go? Will I decide to stay? That can help. And I like to try and give myself that to this day. And that's why if someone says, let's do something in the morning, oftentimes I will say, I will message you in the morning and let you know. Funny thing is, these days I am a morning person, so I am up anyway. But I still like to say that just because I know that my mind works in that stupid way. There's been too many times when I've been up all night because I agree to do something in the morning. It's ridiculous. I've lost so much sleep. Probably done some long-term health. But one of the biggest ways it shows up in my life, even to this day, is when something goes wrong with my health. Now, I do have a track record of having poor health, which is why I latch onto that. Like I said, I've got that diagnosis of an inflammatory bowel disease. So it's easy. If there's one thing wrong, now I'm scared. Now I'm thinking, maybe I'll get into a flare. What about, the consequences? Maybe it will lead to bowel cancer, whatever that is. My mind leaps to it. And I worry constantly, well, not constantly, but I worry frequently about the long-term effects of the medications I'm on. Will I make it to 60 years old? And I'm constantly, I'll load up ChatGPT and be like, can you use analysis to find out how long do people in my situation usually live? It's quite useful for that situational review. I say the medications I'm on, the diet I have, and it gave me a high chance of making it to 60. I'm going to touch some wood there. But still, I still don't really believe it. Something in my mind says, these medications are going to do me harm in the long run. But they're keeping me from flaring. But anyway, it could be anything. A new pain, a new cold. You've done something silly, like you've cut yourself. You're worried about getting an infection. I just ruminate on it until I solve it. And there was this thing I heard in a YouTube video recently about having that unclosed loop. Now, this is a retention hack that people use in YouTube videos, trying to keep you curious throughout the whole video. But it's something that comes up in your day-to-day life. You can think of it, say you've got an unfinished task. This happens to me all the time. Like, in my mind now, I know I've got to finish this video that I'm working on. And in my mind, I'm like, I've got to do that video. I've got to do that video. And it's just an unclosed loop in my head. I need to do that video. I need to do that video. And the only way of closing it is by actually doing it. And you may notice this in your life too. If there's an unfinished task, a thing that someone has asked you to do, it just sort of plays on repeat in the back of your mind until you do it. That's the unclosed loop. I don't know the actual name of that thing, but let's just call it the unclosed loop for now. Now let's move back to unfocused thinking. See, sometimes I think the way it is I've got all these ideas and things that I want to do, and that kind of like scatters my energy, and I'm like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And then I get so focused on one thing, all of those beams of energy sort of dissipate, and I'm just so focused on that one thing, and that's it. That's all I want to do. And I get frustrated when I have to move off of that thing. And sometimes in my life, that one thing hasn't even been that useful. Like, I remember when I was like that about skateboarding for a long time, and I was very, very almost obsessed with trying to get like the perfect kickflip. The perfect kickflip. I'd be down on the seafront skateboarding most days, trying to do the perfect kickflip. And when I watch that footage back now, I'm like, my God, like I was bloody good back then. I've got to admit it. But at that time, it's almost like body dysmorphia. But for my skill, I was like, my kickflip is so shit. Why can't I land this kickflip the way I want it? And then I'm always getting angry. Like, people who know me in real life will recall a time when I was angry skateboarding, throwing my board around, swearing, like be on the seafront yelling the C word at the top of my lungs, screaming like a barbarian, throwing my board around, slamming it. And it would result in me doing a good kickflip, but it was such a detriment to my well-being. I would come home with a headache because I was so angry. My IBD would flare up. I'd start bleeding. And it was just like, why have I done this to myself? All in the pursuit of trying to do a kickflip that for some reason I deem good. That tomorrow I will deem, that's now the standard. If I don't now do that kickflip tomorrow, I'm going to get enraged once again. And it's just a cycle. So I actually had to take a step back from skateboarding. That's why I don't really do it these days. And I replaced it with going to the gym. I replaced it with lifting weights. Something that isn't so skill-based. Because I get really in my own head. And that's just the way I am. That is the way I am. I'm like that in video games. Counter-Strike. But especially Counter-Strike, I got angry in the same way. And it's a team-based game. But I was always angry at myself. Whenever people would hear me swearing on Discord, I was never swearing at them, I was swearing at me. Why didn't I kill this person earlier on so they didn't kill my teammate? Why didn't I just headshot that person? Why didn't I aim better? Why didn't I hear them coming? Why did I make that bad decision? It was always me, I've done it wrong. I've fucked this up. And I was taking all the onus. Now, it reminds me about when I was 10 years old. And one of my dad's friends came down. And he said to me, you walk around like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. And for some reason, ever since that, when he said that to me, it's just stuck with me ever since. That was 13 years ago at this point. Because it feels so accurate. I do walk around like I do walk around like I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. I walk around like I've got all this self-pressure. I can't help but put so much pressure on myself. And I do it today. I do it every day. This day, it turns up in YouTube. I put so much pressure on myself. I work towards it relentlessly. It's all I think about. If I put out a video that only gets, a couple hundred views on my main channel, I'm in crisis mode. I'm downstairs in my little office and I'm thinking, what have I done wrong? Why did it go this way? What was my misconceptions about this video? Why is it boring? Why is it, why aren't people wanting to watch it? And I take it very personally. And then I'm a very emotional person. I really am. I can't separate my emotion from what I'm doing, which isn't the best when you're just trying to... It's all about just taking actions and learning from failures in anything in life. But I can't separate my emotions. I'm just very emotional. When I was a skateboarder, I was emotional. When I was a video editor, well, I still am, I'm emotional. When I'm making YouTube videos, I'm emotional about it. That's just who I am. And it's good to learn who you are, but it can take a bloody long time. And honestly, even if you do know who you are, it can get in the way. It can still get in the way and you can't change it. But anyway, that was my thoughts on hyperfocus and unfocused thinking. And I hope that's helped some of you.